Early in my watch through of Call of the Night, one of the things that's always been nagging at me is, where's the other vampires? Technically, early on, one of the driving things that I had was I seen this PV that showed this Gyaru-looking vampire, and I was just waiting for that moment that we'd finally meet her. But as it went along, the thing that was really kind of grabbing me the most was seeing how Nazuna described what vampires do. The whole male versus offspring aspect, and how she always got flustered in talking about the offspring aspect. I was always wondering if that was the norm for vampires, so I was waiting for another vampire just to confirm, is she telling the truth? Does she really understand how this works? But man, was not expecting in episode 7 to just pretty much show the entire band. We've seen Kikio, the Gyaru one, but I was not expecting to see pretty much a whole group of them. That was a shocker there, but yeah, this episode was great. Really fun seeing Nazuna really jealous for once. I think that was the key thing here, was just seeing just how super jealous, because I knew that was going to eventually happen. I think that was, my assumption was that eventually at some point, because he tastes so good, eventually we're going to have another girl find out about that, and she's going to want to taste Ko. But I wasn't expecting it to turn into kind of what it did, which was more the idea that he's something that the other vampires don't want to have around. He's a human. He's not an offspring. He's not dead. He's a human that understands what the vampires are, or knows about the vampires, and they don't want that. So definitely taking it in an interesting direction. But the thing that sucks the most about episode 7 was, what the hell was that ending? What was that ending? I'm going to get into all of my theories later on, but let's start from the very beginning. Yes, meeting Kikio, which I really do hope that Kikio is as interesting as they kind of later out to be. Obviously, as we've seen from the other vampires, they all really do have a sort of personality they're going for. They're trying to go for something that draws people in, and they're using that for their advantage. So is Kikio purposely making out the perspective of being this Gyaru in order to get attention from men, and then having them pay for escort services, and then eventually probably drink or take them out afterwards? Or is this other side that we slightly seen of her is going to be her actual side? Was this moment of vulnerability that she shows to Ko later on under the bridges what she's using to get his attention? Or is that her real side? That's the big question mark that I want, because I really do want to look into this deeper than it actually is, because underneath all this stuff, it's obviously having messages in here. Right off the bat, we see that Ko is meeting once again with this office worker, and the office worker has changed by him. It seems like she's much more brighter, she has more positive attitude, and it's all because of what he said. It was kind of cool to have Ko really acknowledge that. She's thanking him because she gave him an out, and that's all she really needed. At this moment, all she needed was an out, and she thanks him for it. And from his perspective, he's used to being thanked, because when he was at school, he did a lot of things to essentially be helpful to people. And so he was used to being thanked. But this was different. And he says it is probably because he had a personal interest in helping her that it hit a little better. I think that was worded a little weird, but at the same time, it's maybe him not really understanding what he actually achieved there, which again was similar to the whole situation with her. He went out of his way to stop her, and his initial thought was, I need to get paid, but then it kind of hits in him, no, this is something more. This is because I don't want her going back there because she's in pain. But I'm glad that they brought her back so quickly, and I really do hope this is something that continues on. At the same time, now that I've watched this episode, I'm really concerned about this office lady. I'm really concerned if they are keeping an eye on her as much as they are of Ko, because they obviously knew, but how much do they know about what Nazuna is doing, and will they find out eventually that she's a similar situation, that she's not a male or offspring, and she's running around? Hopefully not. I really like the office lady. I hope that they, not going to be mad that they turn her into a vampire, but at the same time, she doesn't want that quite yet. But yes, the meat and potatoes of the episode was obviously when Ko finally meets Kikio, the Gyaru vampire. Like I said, starting off with her persona that she's basically a Gyaru. She's dressed up like a Gyaru in order to get attention of men. Says that she goes out with them, goes karaoke and stuff like that, gets paid for that. And obviously we can assume that's probably where she gets her meals from as well. Similar to Nazuna. Nazuna does these sleep therapy massages in order to get people in there, and then she drinks their blood. But again, as it goes along and she takes his drink, she shows him a little bit of her chest, goes to leave, she takes his drink, and he follows her, and she starts talking, again, this is where she starts talking about what could possibly be the other side of her insecurities, opening up to him. And again, I'm not sure if she was doing that to get his attention, because he starts to relate to her. And it could have been that she produced that in order to get his attention, Or it could for sure be the other side that we're going to eventually get into for her, which is that she has this desire to kind of stave off boredom. She's bored. She's trying things in order to entertain herself, and she's losing interest in those things. She's possibly a case of somebody that's immortal that's eventually getting to the point where they no longer want to be immortal. That they've tried everything, they've done everything in order to stave off the boredom, to have fun, and it's no longer working. Nothing's working anymore, it's not fun, and it's not exciting anymore. She's looking for something else. Again, he's expressing how much he relates to her. Again, similar situation. He got to this point where he realized school wasn't fun anymore. He wasn't enjoying his time there anymore. But yes, this is all cut short because she goes to drink his blood, calls him by name, and that's when Nazuna shows up super mad. Again, this is the first time we really get to see her jealous. We've seen Ko jealous of her, but it's the first time we're seeing her jealous of anybody around Ko. Granted, she showed a little bit of that with Akira, but not really necessarily to this level. This is her prey, and she's not allowed to touch him. Cuts off her arm, she has to reattach her arm, and this is where we really starting to get into not just Kikyo, but all of the vampires themselves, because Honda shows up and she takes Ko back to their place. And that's where we meet a slew of vampires that seem to all think that what Nazuna's doing is not allowed. From their perspective, Ko's existence is a threat to them. They don't want people that know about the vampires. So it seems like they're giving him a decision. Like, it's almost as if they know that he's somehow important to Nazuna, but not quite to the extent of what they eventually get into. So they're kind of being nice. They're at least not immediately killing him, even though it kind of made it out like Kikyo was going to take him out, but they're trying to be nice about it. Again, you'd think that it's for Nazuna's favor, but it just seems kind of weird how they worded it. But they're giving him an option. Okay, choose somebody in here. Choose the one that you like the most, and that will be the one that turns you into an offspring. Which is kind of funny, because at the time that it first brought this up, I'm like, wow, these girls are really confident in themselves to make him love them really quickly so they can make him an offspring, because Nazuna's trying to do it right now and she's not really doing a good job of it. But the way they're putting it is that they believe that Nazuna is defective. Like, she's never going to turn you into an offspring. She's terrible because she's not good at love. Obviously, she blushes at the thought of love. So yeah, it was kind of funny because it goes through each one of these vampires, and I really like the aspect that each one of them has like a certain archetype. Essentially, they've each evolved to this current time to have an archetype, different types of women that men would want, or women would want. So you have like the very inexperienced looking young girl, the one that looks like she's a shoujo. You have the older woman, you have the more softer mama type. Each one of them has like an archetype to them, and I love how each one of them tries to draw him in. It almost turns into a competition where each one of them are going, oh, she's employing that maneuver. It's kind of funny how they're all essentially competing in a way, but at the same time, each critiquing each other, or not really critiquing each other, but pointing out how they're employing their usual. But yeah, at least Nazuna eventually seemingly holding off Kikyo enough that she arrives there. And of course, she's embarrassed because that's right at the moment that Ko says, no, I want Nazuna to change me because I want to fall in love with her. And so Nazuna hears that and freaks out. And everyone's like, oh yeah, she's blushing right now. She's going to be a while before she's going to respond. But it was interesting, a comment that was kind of made, I don't remember if it was made before Nazuna got there or at the time that Nazuna got there. Specifically, one of them mentions, you don't understand that we don't trust Nazuna yet. Maybe she has no intentions of making you her offspring, and that she's lying to all of us. This is a very interesting comment here, because what it basically implies is that from their understanding, Nazuna never wants to have an offspring. We already kind of got that hint early on when she mentions she's never really made offspring. She doesn't want to. And at this point, and at the earlier moments, it was really her saying, sure, do whatever you want. I just want to keep drinking your blood because your blood tastes interesting. And slowly over time, yes, we're seeing that Nazuna is gaining a friendship with Ko. But additionally, they've also kind of hit on the idea that two of them want to remain friends. Ko hates himself whenever he, sees lustfully towards Nazuna because he wants to see her as a friend. He feels bad. Or the fact that he sees her as more than a friend is something that's kind of something he struggles with. But this comment hits on two things here. One being the aspect that they don't trust her yet, insinuating that either one, she's done something in the past to betray them or to make them not trust her, or two, that she's not been a vampire long enough. In their terms of timelines, not long enough. Yes, she's been around for a long time, and we made the whole joke about the phones and stuff. But maybe in terms of them, she hasn't known them for very long. She's from another area. Or again, in terms of their ages, she's very young. But additionally, it almost kind of insinuates this idea that they liked to create offspring and they don't trust her to do that as well. It was kind of a very loaded statement that can mean a lot of things. And I'm curious as we get into it if they'll explain that stuff more. But yes, the final comment was really... There's so many shows right now that are doing this to me, but the last comment was the one where I'm like, I just want to open up the manga just to check that first page to see what they talk about, or if they even talk about it. But yeah, Ko says, that's all right. I intend on becoming a vampire no matter what, no matter how many years it takes. And everybody's like shocked. Everybody's shocked at that comment. That could mean so many things. The fact that they're all paused right there can mean many things. Yes, it could just mean a joke. And the idea that obviously whenever they talk about creating offspring, it's this idea of, at least from Namazuna's perspective, that they have to make out essentially. And so that's basically him saying that we're going to make out for years. No matter how many years it takes of us making out to create an offspring, we're gonna do it. And being that I love to overthink things, my mind went another direction as well when I first seen that scene. Was like, what if there's a time limit here? What if there's possibly a time limit here? Like, Ko, if you don't become an offspring, you're going to die. Like, is there a time limit until you no longer can become a offspring? Is there a time limit before you possibly could die? Again, I think it might just go back to just being a punchline that he basically in front of all of them just said, we're going to offspring until I become a vampire. Who knows? Their concept of vampires is weird in this show, but it's probably as simple as a joke. Anyways, cool episode. I was actually expecting this episode to show more of like how each of these girls, I guess their more risque sides, which I'm guessing they'll probably get into later on, because they've been really risque with Nazuna. They obviously got a little bit risque with Kikio, so I was kind of assuming they would go do that with the other girls, but it'll probably something they'll do later. Because they're all obviously wanting to win him over as like a competition. And so this could have been them putting down the gavel. Like, this could have been them setting the starting line. But yeah, we'll see. It seems like they've at least agreed they're going to allow him to continue to try to be an offspring to Nazuna. So it doesn't look like they're all going to try to kill him. But it was an interesting little twist to the whole thing. So we'll see how it goes from here. But that's my thoughts on episode 7 of Call the Night. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.